Okay, good evening. Very quick because I wasn't planning on making a video this evening, but it was something somebody was mentioning. Now I believe you pronounce it Grana Prego. I never know how to pronounce that. If I've got it wrong, forgive me. But he was saying anyway, he was having problems with his paint drying. Almost drying before he could use it, particularly black and the white. And in this particularly warm weather, you will do. And I said I use a wet palette, so I don't have that problem. So quickly for him and anybody else who happens to be watching, let's move my camera a minute. I'll show you quickly what I use, the palette that I use. It's actually what it is. It's one of those. Now, any of you that don't know what that is, it's actually a sandwich plate for sandwiches, believe it or not. And you can pick these up around the charity shop. I've seen it for like £1, £2. You know what I mean? This is a ceramic one. As you can hear, I have a whole stack of these in the cupboard in the kitchen. I always pick them up if I see them. And they're really dirt cheap. I won't pay too much for them, but £1, £2, something like that. And they're in good order, I'll buy them. You can also get them in plastic. See, that's a plastic one. Quite a long sandwich plate, but very usable. And once you've got your sandwich plate, your next step, Sainsbury's cloth sponge. Now you need to get it out the packet. You need to cut it. In this case, you need to cut it to fit the sandwich plate because it's too wide. So once you've cut it to fit the sandwich plate, you then get a piece of, let me put this down a minute. Greaseproof paper. And you cut that to the same size as your now cut down sponge, and that's the basis of your palette. All you then do is put your sponge in your sandwich plate, cover it with water. You want the level of the water sort of just below the top of the sponge if you like. Put your parchment on top of that. It will tend to curl up to start with. You keep smoothing it with your finger and get out any air bubbles until it's flat, and that's your wet palette, and that's all there is to it. So what I'll do a second is I'll turn the camera around and I will, if I can get this sponge put away in the bag. Things never go back the way they come out. I will show you my wet palette. Right, so here we go. If I remove the cover or sheet of cardboard just to keep the dust out of it, there is my wet palette. And you can see, if I zoom in a bit, clock right on time. You can see the level of the water is just below the sponge, and I have no problem at all with the paint drying out. You do have to keep an eye on the water level because in this warm weather it will tend to evaporate, but that's how the wet palette works. It works for evaporation. I think the technical word they use for it is osmosis. But this sits on my painting table until the batch of figures I am painting is finished. I just keep the level of the water topped up. When I finish for the end of the day, I put the cover back on it to keep the dust off it. There you go. I keep the cover on it when I'm not painting to keep the dust out of it. And that's your wet palette. And it's as simple as that. Get yourself a sandwich plate and a sponge. You can have a very inexpensive, a very worthwhile wet palette.